One ship, 3 bullets, and your gas just got more expensive forever. Not eventually, not maybe, forever. And the terrifying part? The bullets were almost irrelevant. Every news channel showed you the footage, the destroyer, the night vision, the Marines. Dramatic, cinematic, exactly what they wanted you to focus on. But while you were watching the guns, something else fired. Something invisible. Something that will cost you far more than any missile ever could. And it happened in a glass tower in London. Before the smoke even cleared, April 19th, 2026, 3 a.m. The North Arabian Sea is black and silent. A 900-foot Iranian cargo vessel, the MV Tuska, is pushing through the dark at 17 knots, heading for the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas. And behind it, running without lights, is the USS Spruance, a guided missile destroyer. For 6 hours, it shadowed the Tuska. 6 hours of radio warnings, international hailing frequencies, searchlights cutting across black water. The Tuska didn't stop, so the Spruance did something that hadn't happened in a generation. 3 rounds, 5-inch shells, aimed directly at the engine room. Not a warning, a statement. Then, U.S. Marines fast-roped from helicopters in the dark and took the ship. The whole sequence was captured on thermal imaging and released to the world. And that's when the real weapon activated. Not the gun, the footage. Here's what nobody is explaining to you. Global trade does not run on ships. It runs on insurance. No insurance, the ship cannot legally sail. The port won't accept it. The bank won't finance the cargo. The oil stays in the ground. The entire $14 trillion global shipping industry exists because of a chain of contracts that can be broken in 72 hours. That's not a metaphor. That is literally written into every maritime war risk policy on Earth. It's called the 72-hour notice clause. After a major kinetic event, a seizure, a disabling, an attack, insurers can cancel your coverage, force you back to the table, at whatever rate the market will bear. Before the Tuska seizure, insuring a massive oil tanker through the Arabian Gulf cost roughly $25,000 per year. The morning after, $30,000 per week. Same ship, same route, same ocean, different world. But here's where the real power sits. There is a committee most people will never hear of. It meets in London. It has no elected members. It answers to no government. And it controls whether your heating bill doubles this winter. It's called the Lloyd's Joint War Committee, the JWC. And they don't need guns. They don't need soldiers. They just need to change a designation on a list. In March of 2026, before the Tuska was even seized, they quietly moved the entire Arabian Gulf into a category called Area of Perceived Enhanced Risk. That's it. That's all it took. No bombs, no blockade, no warships. One category change from a committee in London, and an invisible financial wall went up around the world's most critical energy corridor, the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of all the world's oil. Gone. Not physically, financially. And this leads to something called the ratchet effect. When a crisis hits, rates snap upward, instantly, violently. But they come down slowly, over months, sometimes years. Because before rates normalize, underwriters need hundreds of uneventful voyages, quiet transits, no footage, no Marines. Right now, we're getting the opposite. I want you to stop for a second, because I need to reframe something. Everything I've described so far, the 72-hour clause, the JWC, the ratchet effect, this isn't an accident of war. This is a strategy, documented, studied, taught in naval war colleges under a term called the insurance weapon. The idea is brutally simple. You don't need to physically block a strait. You just need to make it uninsurable. Because an uninsurable route is a closed route. No ships will sail it. No cargo will move. No oil will flow. And the enemy's economy begins to bleed out without a single additional bullet being fired. The U.S. Navy didn't just seize a ship on April 19th. It demonstrated the weapon, live, on camera, for every shipper, every insurer, every government on Earth to see. And now nobody can pretend they didn't see it. Now let's talk about your money, because this is where it gets uncomfortably personal. Here's the math. Stay with me. This matters. 1 VLCC, a very large crude carrier, holds 2 million barrels of oil. Hull value? Around $150 million. War risk premium at current rates, 3% per voyage. That's $4.5 million for insurance alone. One trip. Then Iran announced a proposed $2 per barrel security toll for transiting the northern Hormuz shore. On 2 million barrels, $4 million, paid directly to Tehran. Then add the freight rate explosion. Daily shipping rates from the Middle East to Asia went from $35,000 to $423,000 per day. Total cost overhead to move one shipload of crude? Over $13 million. That entire $13 million gets passed forward. Refinery, distributor, gas station, you. Every gallon you pump this week carries the financial signature of that night vision footage. The math works out to roughly 40 cents per gallon added to U.S. prices. California? Even worse. They import 75% of their fuel by sea. They're not watching this crisis from a distance. They're inside it. But here's what should really keep you up tonight. Oil is not the crisis. Oil is just the headline. The real crisis is sitting on 41 ships, stranded, silent, going nowhere. Right now, in the Persian Gulf, those 41 vessels are carrying 1.9 million tons of fertilizer. Fertilizer, the compound that enables roughly half of all the food on Earth to grow. The Haber-Bosch process, nitrogen synthesis, the reason 8 billion people can be fed, sitting on ships that won't move. Not because they were attacked, because no underwriter in London will insure them at a price that makes commercial sense. The cargo is too cheap. The risk is too high. So the ships stay anchored. The fertilizer doesn't arrive. The farms don't get their spring shipment. The harvest comes in short. And 6 months from now, your grocery bill tells you a story about a war you barely followed. And nobody connects the dots. Nobody says, your bread costs more because of a London committee and a night vision video. But that's exactly what happened. This is the moment where the 30-year illusion finally cracks. We built the entire global economy on one silent assumption: that shipping is cheap, that it's reliable, that a container of goods moves from Shanghai to Rotterdam with the same frictionless certainty as sending an email. That assumption is now dead. Companies are abandoning just-in-time supply chains overnight, scrambling to warehouses, stockpiling, building inventory buffers, trapping billions of dollars in goods that just sit there. That trapped capital drives inflation. That inflation hits every price in every store in every city. And here's the part that makes this truly inescapable. You might be thinking, fine, reroute the ships, go around Africa, problem solved. And some ships are doing exactly that. The Cape of Good Hope route, avoiding Hormuz entirely. But here's what that actually costs: 12 to 14 extra days at sea, 150 to 200 extra tons of bunker fuel burned, $840,000 added to a single voyage, and every ship that reroutes south piles straight into the next bottleneck: the Panama Canal, which is already operating at reduced capacity because of climate-driven drought dropping water levels. Captains are now bidding over $4 million just to jump the queue and get through faster. $4 million to skip a line. Do you see the pattern yet? $4 million at Hormuz, $4 million at Panama. The same number. Everywhere. At every choke point on Earth. There is no escape route. Every door out of this crisis has the same price tag on it. And someone, ultimately, is paying every single one. So where does this end? Technically, when the war ends. If a ceasefire is reached, ships eventually start moving again. Insurance rates begin, slowly, painfully, to fall. But listen to what the underwriting industry itself is saying right now, plainly and publicly. A ceasefire won't reopen the insurance market. Not yet. That's not commentary. That's the industry speaking. Because the ratchet only releases when confidence returns. And confidence isn't rebuilt by a signed agreement. It's rebuilt by hundreds of quiet, uneventful voyages. No seizures, no footage, no Marines. How long does that take? After the last major Gulf crisis, industry analysts say confidence took 18 months to fully normalize. 18 months of elevated premiums. 18 months of suppressed trade. 18 months of your grocery bill, your heating bill, your gas bill, carrying the invisible weight of a conflict you didn't vote for. And that assumes it doesn't get worse. That assumes Iran doesn't follow through on its threat to close the strait entirely. That assumes the shadow fleet, the 23% of global tankers running without Western insurance, running dark, running in defiance, doesn't trigger another confrontation. The Tauska was shadow fleet, and the U.S. Navy reached out across the dark water and took it. The message to every remaining shadow captain: we see you, we can reach you, we will come. The partial answer to what happens next: prices will eventually stabilize, new routes will normalize, the world will adapt. It always does. But the cost of that adaptation? Permanently embedded in every price, every good, every calorie, every mile you drive. The frictionless trade era is over. And here is the question nobody is asking loudly enough. The United States just showed the world something extraordinary. You don't need to win a war to win an economy. You just need to make one move that activates the hidden financial architecture of global trade and lets the market do the rest. No occupation, no prolonged ground war, no trillion-dollar rebuilding effort, just a destroyer in the dark, 3 shells into an engine room, and a piece of footage released precisely when it would do maximum damage. The gun was never the weapon, the camera was. And now, every government on Earth is looking at their own trade routes, their own choke points, their own insurance dependencies, and asking the same terrifying question in private that nobody is saying out loud. What happens when this gets used on us? Because this weapon doesn't care about borders. It doesn't care about alliances. It doesn't care whether you're an adversary or an ally who just made the wrong decision at the wrong moment. The $4 million toll is not a war tax. It's a proof of concept. And somewhere tonight, in a government building you've never heard of, in a city you'll never visit, someone is reading the Tuska file, taking notes, and wondering how to use it first. Sleep well.